Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Bennett, and I'm a board member of the Ottawa branch. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which the National Association of Federal Retirees Ottawa branch office is located on traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. On behalf of the branch, I am pleased to welcome you to today's webinar entitled Integrating Volunteerism in Local and Global Development, presented by Catalyste, who were formerly known as CESO. This is an organization with which I am familiar, as I have volunteered with them on 5 or 6 occasions. I want to give a warm welcome to our 2 presenters, Jennifer Rovett and Suko Bebe. Jennifer is a member of the Volunteer Services team and has worked at Catalyste for 11 years. As the recruitment manager, she manages a team of recruiters who are responsible for finding suitable Catalyste Advisors to assist with assignments around the world. Suko has been with Catalyste since November 2021. She first joined Catalyste as a recruitment officer and transitioned to a volunteer officer. She is currently responsible for supporting the recruiting efforts for Catalyste's flagship program, Accelerating Women's Empowerment. I also want to thank Amandine Fournier, Program Officer, who's here to listen in and help with questions at the end, particularly those which may be posed in French. Veuillez noter que le webinaire sera présenté en anglais, mais la participation bilingue est toujours encouragée. I want to give a special welcome to anybody here who is not yet a member of the association. We hope these webinars will inspire you to join us, and to our members, we hope that they will encourage you to maintain your membership. There will be a question and answer period at the end of the webinar. Please type your questions in the Zoom Q&A box throughout the presentation, and the Catalyste team will answer them during the Q&A session. And now over to the Catalyste team.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for that lovely introduction. And good morning, everybody. We're thrilled to be here today. As you know, my name is Jennifer Rovett. I'm the recruitment manager. Suko Bebe will be helping me present today, and Amandine is here to help answer some of the questions. I would just like to say, before we begin, that in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect, I would like to acknowledge that our work takes place on Indigenous territories across Canada. The Catalyste Plus office in Toronto is located on the traditional Indigenous territory of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. In Mississauga, our office is located on the unceded territory of the Kainai. Now, let's get started. So, who are we? With over 50 years of experience, Catalyste Plus is a leader in economic development, both internationally and here in Canada. We work with local partners and institutions to drive economic and social growth using the expertise of our experienced and enthusiastic Catalyste Plus advisors. Catalyste Plus enhances governance and drives economic growth through capacity building, delivering the right skills and expertise, and fostering locally driven sustainable solutions. As you can see from this slide, our volunteers help build capacity with local partners in over 30 countries internationally and here in Canada. So I want to talk to you a little bit about our Catalyste programs. Our flagship 7-year international program is called Accelerating Women's Empowerment, or AW for short. AW focuses on developing and strengthening socially responsible supply chains in key sectors of focus, such as agriculture, natural resource management, food and beverage production, and tourism hospitality. For this program, we work in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. The Canadian CARICOM Expert Deployment Mechanism, or CCEDM for short, is a smaller 5-year program that addresses priority needs identified by national governments in the Caribbean. while also working towards strengthening and diversifying local economies. The program is currently operating in 9 countries in the Caribbean, and a unique feature of this program includes the availability of hybrid assignments. These assignments are a combination of virtual and in-person components for one assignment. In Canada, Catalyst Plus works with Indigenous-led nonprofit organizations, governments, economic development corporations, and small and medium-sized enterprises. Our work is driven by a holistic approach developed in partnership with our clients, where we prioritize Indigenous knowledge and work to ensure that our clients experience long-term benefits from development support. Through individual or group mentorship, advisory, or workshop services, we meet the specific needs of our clients in leveraging skills, completing projects, and creating plans and strategies. Our collaborative approach involves understanding our clients' priorities, recruiting the right expert to support them, and building capabilities so that they are empowered and well-positioned for sustainable growth and prosperity. So, what does volunteering with Catalyst Plus look like? Our volunteers are called Catalyst Plus Advisors. They are skilled Canadian citizens or permanent residents who represent a wide range of industries and professional or technical skill sets. They are culturally sensitive, adaptable, and flexible. Catalyst Plus Advisors share their expertise by providing training, mentorship, and/or coaching to Catalyst Plus partners and clients through in-person or virtual assignments. By sharing their knowledge, our advisors help grow and strengthen local businesses, NGOs, and institutions. They are passionate about sharing their skills and experience to drive positive and sustainable impacts.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Suko now, and she'll finish off the rest of the presentation.
So what does a Catalyst Plus assignment look like? Catalyst Plus assignments are created in collaboration with local clients and partners to foster growth in local economies by providing support in either the private or public sectors. For example, advising a small business on their marketing strategy or working with members of a government organization to support strategic planning. These are just a couple examples of the over 500 assignments Catalyst Plus advisors complete each year. So what can you expect? Assignments usually last approximately 2 to 3 weeks in person or up to 3 months working virtually or with a combination of virtual and on-site activities.
Sorry, Suko, 1 second.
No problem.
There we go.
There we go. The length of virtual assignments really does depend on how often and for how long the partner and advisor choose to meet. An example might be meeting twice a week for an hour, and the assignment lasts for 4 weeks. It's important to note that each virtual assignment is different and has different needs and requirements. In-country assignments are a little more straightforward in terms of time. Advisors are supported before, during, and after their assignments by Catalyst Plus staff. They are consulted on all travel arrangements, and peer mentorship and support is always available to advisors throughout assignments. Catalyst Plus sends advisors to project locations within Canada and internationally at no cost to the advisor. Advisors are welcome to add additional time at their own expense to explore the country or region once their assignment is completed. Following the assignment, partners provide feedback on the impact of the assignment. Since COVID, we continued to provide support and mentoring through virtual assignments. With an internet connection and the proper tools, partners can connect with Catalyst Plus advisors through virtual meetings, workshops, and e-mentoring. Virtual assignments typically take place over a longer period of time, meeting 1 to 2 times per week for 1 to 2 hours. Assignments begin by connecting you with the partners to develop a work plan that describes how, when, and with what software you will be communicating with. Catalyst Plus offers a range of resources and support tools to ensure you are prepared and confident in delivering virtual assignments. We found that this has allowed volunteers to drive positive social impacts and economic growth safely and in a way that aligns flexibly with their daily lives. Virtual assignments are also accessible with no travel, health, or mobility requirements. Since March 2022, we have resumed our in-country assignments. Once accepted for an assignment, you'll start working with one of our volunteer service officers who will help you get ready for your assignment. They will work with you to book flights and accommodation, process your visa application if that is necessary for the country you will be visiting, and will provide you with all the documents you need. Advisors will have a few virtual meetings with the partner before leaving Canada to discuss expectations for the assignment and to begin working on their work plans together. Advisors will then spend 2 to 3 weeks in the field with the partner. While in country, advisors will receive plenty of support from our in-country teams, which consist of a country representative and a project officer. Now that you know a bit about Catalyst Plus, I'd like to talk about how you can get involved. If you are ready and want to become a Catalyst Plus advisor, the first step is to fill out the application on our website and upload your resume. A member of the volunteer services team will review your resume to make sure your skills and experience are a good fit for Catalyst Plus and our partners. The next step will be to schedule an interview with one of our interviewers. Following the interview, he or she will contact 2 of your references. Following that, our onboarding process includes signing some policy documents, completing our online training modules, and obtaining a criminal record check through your local police department or online. And finally, there is a one-time administration fee of $100. It's a bit of a process, but the good news is you only have to go through it once, and then you'll become an active Catalyst Plus advisor. You will receive login information for your My Catalyst Plus account, where you can see Catalyst Plus news and updates and customize your profile and search through all the available assignment opportunities. If you find an interesting opportunity that is a good fit for your skill set, you can contact the recruiter and apply directly to them. Our recruitment team will also notify you of any assignments that might be a good fit as well. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today and for listening in.
Thank you.
Well,
So
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm just going to stop sharing if that's okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Suko, for that presentation, and to Jennifer for the introduction. One thing that I would like to just emphasize based on my experience is that it's often quite useful in advance to actually do a little bit of research on your partner online and to email them as well to get a sense of the environment, to get a sense of what the expectations are before you actually get to the country in question.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great way to start your assignment. And, you know, setting those expectations and putting them in place is really, really helpful to have a successful assignment.
Mm-hmm. There is a question that just came in, and I think we covered it, but just a little bit more detail. Do we have to pay for any of our travel expenses, e.g. transportation, hotels, etc.?
Suko, do you want to do this since you coordinate?
Yes, I can cover this question. So no, you do not have to cover any of the expenses. We provide you with an advance about 2 weeks before your departure, and we also provide a breakdown of that advance. So the advance will cover accommodation in country and in transit. It'll also cover your meals while you're in country and in transit, and any other costs that can come up during your assignment. At the end of each assignment, we also process an expense report so that we can reimburse you for any costs that we did not cover during that advance.
Thank you, Suko.
No problem.
Now, a lot of us will have a certain set of expertise based on our government experience. And I think some people wonder whether how applicable that is to working in the field. So can you give some examples of the types of skills and experience needed for the projects?
Well, it really, there's so many different skill sets and expertise that's needed. And we find that our CAs, our Catalyst Plus advisors that come from the government, that field, they're able to manage and take on a number of assignments. So it could be anything from, you know, maybe doing some strategic planning assignments, or business development, policy, maybe helping out with some policies.
Governance is
Even
another issue.
governance for sure. Amandine works for the CCEDM program, and that program works very closely with government. So maybe Amandine, you could share a little bit of what some of those assignments entail.
Thank you. Sorry, my internet was unstable, so I missed what was just said before. So I apologize if I repeat, but an example working with government and public institution in the Caribbean could be around human resources standardization, assessment of skill gap, and plan for closing those gaps. It can be around result-based management and monitoring and evaluation framework, gender mainstreaming, gender equality, advancing gender equality. As Jennifer mentioned, the whole spectrum of what you may have done as a public officer in public servant in Canada would help any government that we are working with.
And I can certainly say from my experience that I did a lot of grants and contributions management in the government, and I know that's increasingly the case in the Canadian government. And that's the experience that I bring to my CESO assignments, is that I help local organizations find funding either locally, but more likely internationally, to help them continue their operations and to be sustainable.
For sure.
Someone has asked whether we could give an example of a project. What does the entire life cycle look like, from application through to post-mortem? I don't know whether Suko or Jennifer or Amandine would like to answer that.
Sure. Maybe I can start, and then Suko can, I'll pass it over to Suko. So what happens is we get these assignments in recruitment. We get assigned these assignments, so myself and the other recruiters, and we start looking for a suitable volunteer. So we search the database, but our volunteers also see the assignments on their My Catalyst Plus account, so they can apply directly to the recruiter if there's an assignment that interests them. So the application process involves a letter of application, which we provide guidelines on how to write. It's kind of like a cover letter when you're applying for a job, and your resume. So if we feel you're a good fit and your letter of application is well written and it aligns with what's required for the assignment, we will submit that application to our country rep, our country representative in the country, both the letter of application and the resume, and then they share it with the partner. And the partner reviews these letter of applications and resumes. If it's one CA that's applied, or let's say 3, and they decide if they would like to work, who they'd like to work with, and that volunteer. And then we're notified of the selection, and then we send them a acceptance email that they've been accepted for this assignment. And that's the recruitment process. So now the volunteer is accepted for the assignment, and then they start working with the volunteer services officer And Suko, you could talk a little bit more about that process, what entails after they've been accepted.
Yes. So in the acceptance email, you'll have a list of contacts that will be reaching out to you. And one of those contacts is the volunteer service officer. So the volunteer service officer is responsible for coordinating the assignment. That means they will be assisting you in booking your flights and making sure you have the accommodation booked, and will also be assisting you in all of the administrative aspects of the assignment. So when they reach out to you, it'll start off with a pre-assignment email that will ask you for your availability for a briefing call. And during that briefing call, we will talk to you about the documents that you need to prepare before you actually travel. So that would include having a medical done and seeing your family doctor. That also includes assigning some of our other prerequisite documents that you need before you travel. And once we have shared those documents with you, we will also share a work plan template that you can complete. And that template should be filled out after you have a launch meeting with the partner. So your volunteer service officer will also connect with the country team to make sure that you are able to meet with the partner soon after you receive your acceptance. So that preparatory stage between acceptance and deployment can take anywhere between, well, at minimum, it should take about 3 weeks, because that will give the volunteer service officer time to coordinate your trip. But for some of our other assignments, it may take a little bit longer, just because we need to make sure that your availability lines up with the partner's availability and that the objectives of the assignment have been clearly laid out. So once everything has been set up for you to travel, you will go on your assignment. You will spend about 2 to 3 weeks in field, depending on the work that is required. And once you come back from your assignment, that's when we start preparing your post-assignment documents. So that includes an expense report, sending that to your service officer so that they can review your expenses and process a reimbursement if that's applicable. You will also need to fill out an assignment report. So that report is going to ask you a couple of questions about the work that you did while you were in field. And then you can also send us, any other documents that you've prepared for the assignment. So we usually require these post-assignment documents to be sent to us within 3 weeks of your return, or 3 weeks after your side trip, depending on if you take that or not. And for some of our assignments, for example, the assignments in the CCEDM program, that post-assignment stage can take a little bit longer because you do need to do a couple of follow-ups virtually. So that's where this idea of a hybrid assignment comes in, where half of the assignment is done in person and the other half is done virtually after a couple of months. So our timelines, our assignment timelines really vary. It depends on the partner's objectives and all of the work that needs to be done. So once we've collected all of your post-assignment documents, your volunteer service officer will connect back with you again to conduct a debriefing call so that we can listen to some of the feedback that you have, and you can let us know how you felt the assignment went, what you would like to see in future, and things like that.
Thanks, Suko. Someone would like to know, what are the locations of your projects in Canada, and what might someone who's doing a Canadian project be doing?
So our assignments can take place all over Canada. We've got a program up north in Nunavut, BC, Alberta, Ontario. So it's really anywhere in Canada. An example of an assignment could be, I don't work on the program, but perhaps it could be like helping a small business owner in one of the communities, and just mentoring them and helping them with anything from like a business plan, a strategic plan, just a marketing plan, just mentoring them on how to grow and develop their business so that they're profitable, sustainable, that kind of thing.
Can you give us a sense of why one project might be virtual and another one might be in person? Is there a difference in the type of assignment or political situation or anything like that?
Yeah, so, well, obviously during COVID, everything had to be virtual. But now that we've gone back into person, there are still a number of assignments that are still virtual. And a reason for that might be that we might have a partner in one of the countries we work in, and perhaps the partner's just not ready to welcome a volunteer in person. And they just feel like it would be better to have the assignment virtually for now. And a number of assignments are virtual due to the political situation that might be occurring in one of the countries that we work in. Sometimes they are in person and have to be switched to virtual, depending on what's happening in the country. We have that right now with Ecuador. So
Okay.
is there any other, Suko or Amandine?
Yeah, I think virtual assignments are just they're more accessible to partners who may not have the capacity to host an
Yeah.
advisor in country, and there may also be partners who are located in a more rural areas, so they may be very far from the capital city or where the airport is located. So a virtual assignment would be, I guess, more useful for them.
Mm-hmm. You know, we've learned a lot from COVID in terms of how to properly do a virtual assignment, and you know, we've implemented those learnings as we've gone forward with virtual assignments, you know, just to make sure like connections are better, people are available for the calls, the people are in a good like space for the assignment to take place, not like in their car, that kind of thing.
Thank you. This next question is actually for me. Can you tell us about your experience as a volunteer? And I can say that yes, I've done 5 or 6 assignments. 2 were virtual during COVID, and 3 or 4 were in person. The majority were in Ethiopia. I have some background in Ethiopia. I was posted there many years ago, and one was in another virtual one was in Tanzania. I certainly found them very rewarding. You get a wonderful chance to meet a lot of local nationals plus international people. In my case, because I was seeking funding for their projects. One project, I was seeking funding for a Chamber of Commerce in Ethiopia. Another project was with in fact, one of the photographs that you showed earlier was with a woman who had a leather business, helping her get off the ground.
Oh.
And then another project was women with mobility and disability challenges. All of those were in Ethiopia. And one of the organizations in Tanzania was an industrial group, an alliance of industries. I will say, certainly from my experience, and I'm glad that Jennifer made that comment, that I did find it a challenge working doing a virtual assignment because you couldn't always get the same level of engagement and commitment from the partner.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know whether whether you want to add anything to that, Jennifer or Suko, or Amandine. Yeah, no need to, because you did mention that you had worked on addressing that issue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another viewer has said that they've looked at the Catalyste website, but never saw any reference to communications advisors. And I know a lot of people have communications experience in government. Do you have any volunteer advisors with this expertise, and how much is it needed on assignments?
We have a lot of volunteers with that experience, and it's definitely one of our larger areas for assignments, especially with COVID. There's a huge demand for, you know, just on like the website development and marketing aspect of, you know, that side of communications, but also like there's a number of assignments where a communications specialist is required to, you know, just help with their communications plan. So it is a large area that we work in.
Yeah, just in that regard, I think once you actually get accepted into the as a volunteer advisor, you can have perhaps greater access to the website, and in that website you can put in all sorts of key things like communications or the country or different things like that, so that you can come up with communications projects that you might otherwise not have been aware of. And that does relate to another question that came in. So is it up to the volunteer advisor to actively go through the website and to look at emails that come in, or will your advisors and your hiring people, will they approach you and say, look, there's a job in Ghana or there's a job in Laos. We think you might be appropriate. Are you interested?
Yeah, for sure. Amandine, do you want to take a
yeah.
crack at this one? Don't want to leave you out.
That's okay. So it's both. It goes both ways. So as Paul mentioned, once people are become a Catalyste advisor, they have actually access to an intranet where they can better tag their own profile. So we have a system of roles. So we ask you to describe your experience in profile with a number of roles, and that will help us match you automatically with potential opportunities, so potential assignments. So in that portal, you also can, if you want to, you can set up automatic notification, as Paul mentioned, based on skills, so those roles I just mentioned, sectors or countries. And that's when you can, and you will have access to the whole list of current opportunities. That's when you can ask for more information, and you can contact the direct recruiter. So it could be Jennifer, Suko, myself, or two other person internally. And you can apply. And at the same time, people like Suko, Jennifer, myself, we do approach advisor that because we recruit for specific opportunities. And that's also our part of our role to proactively approach people that we think may be a good fit. And then obviously it's up to you to let us know if you're interested, if you're available. This is where a discussion can happen. And just to finalize, maybe reiterate, in the end, when people apply, obviously we're very grateful for people applying, but it is always up to the client or the partner to make the decision of who they want to work with.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Amandine. Yeah. Now, I know that Catalyste has been doing work in this area lately. How do you measure the success of projects in the short and long term?
Well, we have a monitoring and evaluations team, and they, through the documents that are filled out and completed after each assignment, that's a tool that we use to measure success. And then the monitoring and evaluations team goes through all these reports, and they do what they need to do to gather the results and put those into a report that we report back to Global Affairs Canada with. Do either of you, Suko or Amandine, know more about the reports? I know both of you work more with the reports than I do in terms of gathering the results and how we measure success.
Amandine.
That's okay. So each program, also, as you can imagine, are based on a specific parameter. So for each program, we do have often a performance management framework. So that's what our team of monitoring and evaluation work on. So obviously, there's a lot of different metrics, both quantitative and qualitative. And as much as, and with obviously a logic model for each program around output and then outcomes. So that follows the RBM methodology, and especially for our project program funded by Global Affairs Canada or by the Government of Canada for Indigenous services, there is always kind of an established framework for measurement. I would say also we have, our organization have really is really trying to also improve and show success by more in a more public way. And I would say in our website we do try to post now like working on more in-depth success stories and highlighting some of those key changes that happen thanks to an assistance. So I'm sorry, I don't have like a specific example on my coming to mind, but I know that especially we are working on like highlighting and showing how the technical assistance that partner clients receive, the different impacts it has created for them.
And two of the common threads that run throughout the evaluation will be, and that's partly, I think, as a result of global affairs funding, would be gender equality and environmental issues as well that sort of come up in all the evaluations that the volunteer advisor will undertake.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say someone applies for an assignment and you don't necessarily meet all the criteria. Are there times when you would split an assignment between two people?
I think it would depend on the size of the assignment. We don't typically split two people for one assignment, but there has been a case with the CCDM program, I think, where we had an assignment that had a really big request. So we required 2 advisors to complete the assignment, but they had different expertise. It's just both of their expertise came together to deliver the kind of work that the partner wanted. So I would say it has to be a very big request from a client, and the request has to go to a common goal. But with the other smaller assignments, if no one meets the criteria for that one assignment, then we usually go back to the country teams to see if the assignment can be reworked in any way, or an advisor who has maybe some of the expertise but not all of them can still work on the assignment, give the advice that they can give, and then once the assignment is complete, then a secondary assignment can be created just for the remaining part of what wasn't covered. I think that answers it.
Okay, thanks, Nicole.
If I could just add on to that, we've had situations where we've received an assignment and it's the assignment itself is asking for many different expertise, and we as recruiters were like, well, we can't find one person to do all of this. Like, they're very different skill sets. So there's been times when we've had to go back to the program manager and the in-country teams and say, this assignment would be better if it was split maybe into 2 assignments, or if it was split into 3, depending on the skill sets that are required. So we've had those situations before too.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Now, your office would appear to be in Toronto, and a lot of our listeners and viewers today will be in Ottawa. Is there any reason that we would have to travel to Toronto, or can much of this discussion and processing, et cetera, be done virtually or by email or on the web?
Yeah, no, it's all done virtually. We have an office in Toronto and Montreal. We are, as staff members, we have gone back to the office a little bit. We go in, maybe once a week, every 2 weeks. But there really is no need for volunteers to go into the office in person. Back in the day before COVID, if you were in the area, you could certainly stop by, say hello, drop off forms if needed. But now, with everything being online, there really is no need for office visits.
Okay. Now, this relates partly to the question that Jennifer, or to an issue that Jennifer just raised. How do you select the partners you work with? And you mentioned that they're country program managers. Do they actively recruit potential partners? Do they approach you? There's certain criteria for a partner?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if there's criteria, but the in-country team, so our country representatives and our program officers, it's their job to do business development. So they're the ones that go out and find different partners who are willing to work with us in some capacity, and they have to, you know, have that need and align with our themes too, such as gender equality and environment. And they, you know, I'm sure there's like meetings and discussions involved with that. And then I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Suko or Amandine, that once a partner has been like identified by the in-country team, it does have to be approved by GAC for our AW program. I'm not sure how it works with CCEDM.
For the AW program, there is like an approval by Global Affairs Canada for the partners. For CCDM, as our target is specifically a ministry, public institution that's already filtering lots of, and any organization that is not a state ministry or public institution had to be endorsed by a ministry. So that's, and that's based on the criteria of that program.
Mm-hmm. And then for our Indigenous and Northern Services program, I'm not sure if the clients need to be approved by the federal government in any way, but there's a lot of our INS team attends a lot of conferences themselves, and they do business development. We have client relations officers that go out to those conferences. They network, they try to like sell Catalyst Plus to see if there's any need for people who want to work with us. And then I would imagine, again, I'm not too familiar with the program, but there would be discussions with our director of Indigenous and Northern Services, and she would decide, and also the client relations officers who they bringing in as potential partners and clients in that program.
Now we're getting a good range of questions today. Here's one in particular. I would assume that individual travel insurance is required. Most of the volunteers would be seniors, so maybe a little harder to get travel insurance. Is there any insurance provided by the program?
Yeah. Yes, we cover your insurance for the entire duration of the assignment. We work with Sutton, and if you would like to stay in the country for a side trip, that's when you would need to provide your own insurance, because we only cover you for the duration of your assignment. So we do have a couple of resources of different insurance providers you can contact if you would like to go on a side trip, but for the purposes of your assignment, you are covered from the moment you leave Canada to the moment you return.
Now, we've made reference already to global affairs. How is your organization funded? Is there private sector money? Is it primarily government money?
It is primarily federal government money. So Global Affairs Canada funds our AW program, our CCEDM program, and then our Indigenous and Northern Services program is funded by the federal government as well. I believe that's, I forget the name of the government because it keeps changing. Indigenous and Northern Affairs, I think it's called now.
I think so, but
Yeah.
I agree that it changes quite often, so it's hard to keep track. So.
And then, you know, we do get donations from private sector companies, but it is mostly government funded.
Now, getting back to the question of age, is there an upper limit of age for a volunteer?
No. We did, but it was 79, but that's being removed. So now there is no age limit for going on an assignment. However, I believe the insurance will just cost more on our part.
Okay. Now, what would you consider to be the characteristics of an ideal volunteer? Agility, independence, working well with a group, a facility with language, any other things?
Yes, all of that. You know, one thing that's really important for our volunteers is to be able to be flexible and adaptable. because you're traveling to these developing countries, it's not it's not like how we're used to things here in Canada. So things just might be a little bit different. There might be long travel times to and from the partner. The internet connection may not be so great. You know, like you might be in the middle of doing a presentation and the power might go out. Things like that. So just being able to like pivot and think on your feet quickly is a really huge characteristic that we look for. And just really being culturally sensitive. You know, again, there's so many little nuances when you travel to these countries, and things that maybe we think are really normal are just like prohibited or not done in those countries. So just being aware of those cultural differences and being respectful of the countries that you're visiting, and just being patient, I think, too, you know, working with these different partners. And Paul, I'm sure you can talk, you know, with your experience, what it's been like for you and what's worked well for you.
Well, certainly in terms of the different cultural mores, etc. I mean, a question of time perhaps maybe an issue that would come up. I mean, in terms of the time of meetings and the time to get together with people, we may have certain standards either as Canadians or individually that may not be quite the same as the client with whom we're dealing. And I certainly, in terms of the other aspects of flexibility, the ability to pivot to another approach if something isn't working on the spot, which is really important. I mean, we talk about during COVID, you know, having to pivot all the time. Well, you certainly may have to pivot as an advisor. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Now, related to that, is there a list of project summaries of those that have been completed and the skills required of Catalyste Advisors? I mean, if people want to sort of look and see, well, I might be good for this type of project, or what have been the major strengths or weaknesses or whatever.
Yeah, we don't really have a list of completed projects anywhere that's available publicly. You know, like we
You do have the annual report.
Yeah. So the annual report is a good document and good resource to know what was done in the previous year and some of the success stories that came out of that year. So that is a good tool or a good resource to look at for sure. And that's available to anybody who wants to read it. But we don't actually have like a list of all the completed projects.
Just to add as well, we do have a LinkedIn page where we do post about the work that's happening in Catalyst Plus, some of the assignments that we've conducted. So if you'd like to follow along, I think LinkedIn is also a good resource for you to keep track of the work that we do.
And you also have little clubs in different cities of existing and I guess potential advisors who might get together to chat. Do you want to mention a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have Catalyst Plus clubs, and we have one in Victoria, Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal. Unfortunately, there's not one in Ottawa. But that's not to say there couldn't be. So these are clubs that are created and run by our volunteers. These are volunteers that have taken the initiative to start these clubs, and they're basically like a network for our volunteers. So they arrange, like, maybe every couple of months they get together. The Toronto club actually uses our Toronto office. So actually that would be a reason to go to visit the office, but they use our office space, and then they come together and they might have like one of the volunteers present on his or her recent assignment. Or they might have different topics that they want to discuss. It really is for volunteers and run by volunteers. Sometimes we as staff members might do a presentation for the group if they ask us to. But it's certainly like it's their thing, and like they run with it. And then we as staff like support it if we can or if they need it. But they're a great way to meet fellow volunteers. Great way to share your experience and listen to others' experience as well.
Maybe just to complement about what is accessible for people who are not yet a Catalyst Plus advisor. So on the website, we do have lots of those impact stories that may help envisioning what is it as an experience from a volunteer perspective, but also what was the point of view of those partner and clients, and so that maybe could help people envisioning the skills and the role that they could take by joining the organization.
Mhm.
And certainly when in some of my assignments, and another assignment related to vulnerable families and children, even though it may not be completely in your job description, you will sometimes be asked to write success stories or impact statements for their annual reports or for whatever, and that can also give you a sense of what's worked, what the skills required are, etc. So.
Mhm.
Now, Amandine, here's a question perhaps for you. Do the projects take place in English, French, or other languages? I mean, what kind of skills do we need as potential volunteers?
Okay, so je sais pas s'il y a des francophones dans l'assistance, mais so we do assignment in French and English. We're more than happy to welcome new advisor who can speak French. Donc, s'il y a des francophones, n'hésitez pas à candidater. We in the country, if we work in a country where English or French is not the language of the partner, there is sometimes way to have official translator or someone from the team will translate and help the work, but that is also something to take into account when Jen was talking about adaptability and patience. We do have assistants in person or virtual that may require translation. We do acknowledge that it may then things takes longer, it's a bit harder, but we do that. As we work in Latin America, we do work in several countries that where the language is Spanish. So we do sometimes require advisor to speak Spanish. So again, if you speak Spanish to a professional level, please, you are more than welcome to join our roster and also to actually mention that you have this language skill. But usually, even in Latin America, very often the assignment takes place in English. And then, of course, we work, as I mentioned, we work with countries where the official language is French, so in Francophone Africa. And so that's where definitely we language requirement is part of the criteria to select assignments.
Okay, thanks, Amandine. Now, here's a question that I haven't seen before. If we know of possible partners in a specific country, can we contact the country advisor to inform them, or the local Catalyst office, or is this something that you at Catalyst would do?
We have had people do that before. Like, I've had advisors say to me, Jennifer, I know this business, or I know this person in this country that could be a good fit as a partner. And what I do in that situation is I would direct them to I would connect them with our director of international services and let them have that conversation. And they would the director would be a better person to have that conversation with and tell them if it is possible, if it isn't, go from there.
Now, there are two related questions coming up now. Are there any volunteer opportunities to coach or mentor people aiming to access senior leadership roles in their organizations? I see you all nodding your heads.
Yeah, it does. The need does come up. So that would go into our, maybe one of our HR assignments, something like that. Or just
perhaps
general.
Also governance, perhaps too.
Yeah,
so.
governance. Yeah, coaching and mentoring. Yeah, the need comes up.
Leadership training.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe just to complement this is yes, this is a need of assistance both internationally and definitely with Indigenous communities.
Yeah. And as I say, there's a related question. Do you have any demands for life skills, emotional intelligence coaching?
Perhaps. I think that would come up sort of like as an HR type assignment.
Or perhaps as a leadership one as well, in terms of
Yeah.
how you deal with people and organizations.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
One question that I sort of came up earlier in the presentation today. In the past, I don't recall that that Catalyste necessarily encouraged advisors to stay in the country afterward to do perhaps a side trip or see more of the country. But that seems to be something that you don't dissuade anyway now. Can you comment a little bit more on that?
I can take it. Yeah, I can take it. Yeah, you're certainly able to take a side trip after the assignment. You just need to make sure that you are covered by your own insurance, and the side trip cost, it comes out of your own personal costs. So we will cover the entire assignment, and we will also fly you back to Canada, but you would be responsible for the difference in if you had taken a standard 2 to 3 week assignment, and then we book you for the actual dates that you'd like to travel. So you would have to cover that difference, and then you'd also have to cover whatever costs you need for the duration of your side trip. So you're definitely welcome to stay in the country, as long as you're comfortable, as long as it's safe to do so.
Yeah, and that's just brings up another issue. We don't have much time, but safety in a country. Do you want to comment? Because a lot of places are having civil strife or natural disasters, etc. Any comments on that? And how advisors would be looked after?
Well,
Yes.
certainly,
Go ahead.
Suko, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, that's why we also have our country teams. Our country teams are there to not only build partnerships with clients in country, but they're there to also assess the situation on the ground. So we always make sure that we're sending our advisors to safe places. If there's anything that does come up, any kind of unrest or natural disasters, then our country teams are able to let us know, and that's when we will stop all travel to the country. So I rest assured you are safe. If the assignment is available and we're actively recruiting for it and we're preparing you to go, then it's safe to do so. And we will always let you know if we need to cancel any such assignments. So we've recently canceled all of our assignments in Ecuador, just to make sure that we're not sending advisors to places that are a little bit more unstable.
And just to add to that, so if something happens while an advisor is in the country, we would bring that volunteer home right away. Just, safety is always the biggest concern for our volunteers. So we would never, ever put you or leave you in a situation that's unsafe. And also just on your own free time while you're in the country, just have, some common sense. Like we always say, like, don't go out at night by yourself, and, just be aware of what's happening sort of like in your immediate surroundings and stuff. So, just use that common sense for yourself to be safe while in the country as well.
Okay, I'm afraid we're running out of time today. We have got to as many questions as were posted, but if you have any further ones, please send them to us and we'll follow up with Catalyste. I want to thank all the participants today for being with us, and we'd like to thank Jennifer, Suko, and Amandine for their excellent presentations and response to questions. And remember to look for our follow-up email to everyone. It will include information on how to access the recording of today's session, as well as contact information for our presenters. Remember that you can invite non-members to attend our webinars and try us out as a guest. To register for upcoming webinars, please visit the Ottawa branch website. We will make sure to include our website address in the follow-up email. Thank you for everyone. See you at the next webinar, which will be tomorrow when Aaron Thornell will be speaking on the Better Homes Ottawa Loan Program. Merci, à la prochaine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.